Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America, website thisweekinamerica.us. The new novel, Madam President, introduces the first female president. A passionate female politician pursues the dream of the presidency in the new novel by Sandra Carroll. Sandra is retired from county government. Working in the judicial system gave her, she says, unique insights into what women endure professionally and personally. She has two sons, lives in Stuart, Florida with family members, and Madam President is her first novel, and she joins us on This Week in America. Sandra, welcome to the program. Great to have you with us.
Oh, thank you. Hi, Rick. Nice to be here.
Well, it's great to have you on the program. Madam President, a fascinating read. It's easy to read. It's informative. It will entertain you. It will give you something to think about. And as I'm reading it, I'm thinking, it's not that many years ago, this really would have been sort of a novelty book or a dream book. But now it's the reality. And we're looking at your book is set in, 2016. It's not that far-fetched that we could have our first female president in 2016.
That's what I'm thinking, too. Yes.
Yeah, everything is set up right for it. The time is right. It is now going to be a reality. It is going to be the future. And when you think about it, and you mentioned it in the book, a lot of foreign countries have done this before. This is like no big deal to them. Over here, this will be historic if we have a candidate, even a candidate running for president.
Right. That's the way I feel about it. And of course, we had Hillary Clinton last time that made it most of the way through. And so I think this time, with the next elections, it's very possible that we might even elect a female president, which would be wonderful.
What's interesting is you mentioned, Hillary is being prominently mentioned, and they're saying on the Democratic side there could even be a challenge by Elizabeth Warren, a senator from Massachusetts. So you've got maybe two of the front runners in the Democratic Party that are women now. And of course, the Republicans a few years ago had a female candidate for vice president. How long has this story, this is the first novel, you've been working on it for a while. How long has this story been in your mind where you're thinking, I really would like to write this novel?
Well, I retired a couple years ago, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with my time. And I had always thought about sitting down and writing a book. And so last spring, I was thinking, I had read some articles about women, potentially in politics and the upcoming elections. And so that kind of planted a seed, if you will, and so got me interested. And I sat down, and pretty soon it was my thoughts to the keyboard, and off I went, and it kind of wrote itself, to be honest with you.
So these ideas have been there for a while, and then you just sort of sit down and they sort of come out. So this is like all these years of thoughts and experience on your part. Suddenly you have a chance to sit down and to put this all together. It starts with a young girl named Megan Margo O'Brien. A lot of this takes place in Minnesota, and that's an area where you spent a great deal of your life.
That's correct. That's correct. I spent the majority of my life in the Rochester, Minnesota area, and I was active in just local and statewide politics at the grassroots level, if you will, for many years. And that, again, gave me some of my background, along with the county government that I worked in the judicial system. And then I worked in community services at the county level, whereby I helped families and children with their needs. And that all kind of, you'll see, is in the background of my book, if you will. Some of my experience that I drew on was to write the book came from my history and my employment. So yes, it was all about. Even though Megan, the main character, there's a career in the Air Force. Therefore, she goes out of Minnesota for a while. She does go back to run for the Senate seat as the first female to be elected in Minnesota. So it is takes a lot of it takes place in Minnesota.
Sandra Carroll, our guest on This Week in America. The book is called Madam President. Information available at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Also, you get information on the book at abbottpress.com. That's Abbott with 2 B's and 2 T's. Of course, at amazon.com. And you can link on to all that information from our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Let's go back to the pathway that you set up for Megan to become president. She's part of a military family and was Air Force dependent, and that really sort of molded her, didn't it? As to her character, as to her goals, and then you mentioned she got into the JAG from there. But you can see her mind starting to take shape to be strong and independent, even at that age.
Correct. As a military dependent, of which I also was, you learn, to make new friends as you transfer from base to base. And it gives you kind of an inner strength and courage to kind of face whatever's out there, because you're moving to new areas, and gives you exposure to a lot of different people, a lot of different places. And with that strength and determination, Megan learns how, at an early age, to get along with people and to show her strengths as she matures, and then as she goes off to college and then joins the JAG Corps. Those strengths follow her, and her determination to follow her lifelong dream is very strong. So that helps form her pathway, if you will, to her political career.
That gives her some of the military background. She returns from the service, goes into private practice, practices family law in Minnesota, which gives her another look at the real world out there, the very basic, the family unit. Talk about that experience and how that molded her and really led her to thinking, I'm going to run for the Senate. I'm going to be the first U.S. Senator from Minnesota.
Well, a lot of her professional work, both in the JAG Corps and in her family law practice, were with women and families that were in difficult positions. And she had a strong belief and in women's rights and the equality of women. And that is something that gave her the drive, if you will, to pursue a political career so that she might be able to help women in need and families in need. And for the first time, even though she had always wanted to be president, she saw that this was a path, if you will, to achieving and helping the families, the individuals, whether they're male or female, but a lot of females achieve and get some stability and some help when they need. And so that is one of her driving forces of why she sought the political office. And she knew by starting at a senator, she would have that exposure, being able to meet with people of her district and her state, and then move on up to make her even more in tune, if you will, or well-rounded and ready for presidency.
And if you think, okay, this is a book and all we're going to hear about is Megan and her political climb, you're wrong, because you show the sadness, you show the happiness, and love stories in here as well. I mean, she's a normal person.
Right. And that was very important to me, because every person that is in political life is, in fact, a real person. We have our flaws, we have our strengths. And so did Megan. Megan had, along her way, she had some very sensuous love affairs, and she met her one true love. And with that, it brings the reader into focus that these people, whether it's the president or a senator or just a regular person, they're all individuals with, like I said, their strengths and their weaknesses. So yes, and in the book, I portray her as a person, because that, in fact, is who we have for our leader. They end up being, sometimes, I think, in our minds, set aside, but deep down, they're like all of us. They're just an individual and they bring to that office their strengths and their weaknesses and their courage. So that's what the book is about a person that dreams of being president, and it shows you the real Megan as she journeys to that goal.
Madam President is the name of the book. Our guest on the program this week in America. Our guest on the program is Sandra Carroll. The book is available at abbottpress.com, amazon.com, of course, and all that information you can link on at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. As you're writing the book, are you maybe envious isn't the word, but as you're writing Megan, are you thinking that's sort of neat? I wish I were Megan.
Well, I was very attached and am very attached to Megan as a person. So had I had that probably desire as a young person, I could have seen an interest in doing the same. I just didn't have the same determination, if you will, as a young person. As I got older and got involved in politics, in my 30s and 40s, by then I had a family, and my interests, if you will, were different, and I don't think I had enough strength and determination to pursue it. But yes, it is an area that I was very interested in, and I think you probably, as you read the book, can see it's a person that feels the part, if you will, or has feelings for this individual's dream.
Madam President is the name of the book. Our guest on This Week in America is Sandra Carroll. I mentioned in the beginning that your work in the judicial system gave you some unique insights into what women endure professionally and personally. Talk a little bit about that. What was that like for you? Because on a daily basis, you're seeing people vulnerable and helping them deal with situations in life.
Yes, very true, Rick. I was in the judicial system as a court assistant for 14 years, and there wasn't a day that went by that I didn't see the struggles that individuals, males, females, juveniles, families go through, because when they end up in the court system, it is a time that usually isn't a pleasant time for them. And so it was an interesting career, but sad in many ways, because the people that end up in going through the court system and the judicial system are in need of help for things that they did or things that happened to them. So, and saw firsthand the suffering that families go through for domestic abuse, if you will, or for just the criminal acts that people are subjected to, whether it's burglary or even as much as a death, which is even the worst, a murder. But I witnessed all of those, and we also worked with the juveniles and saw how so many of our young people need guidance along the way, and some of them are lacking that. And so it was a very, very rewarding career in that you would hope that once they finished with the judicial system, that they could go on to be better, whether they're placed in foster care or whether they're placed with a new family or whether they're adopted through adoption. We're always hoping that when they leave, that they can leave happier than when they came, if you will.
The book is called Madam President. Sandra Carroll, our guest on the program. Information at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. You mentioned the physical and sexual assault against women, which is touched upon in the book, also the war in Vietnam, the war in Afghanistan, and women's rights. You talk a lot about in the book as well, and sometimes I think maybe we have a tendency to over-congratulate ourselves for as far as we've come at being open-minded, and we see issues involving equal pay between men and women, equal jobs, that type of thing. What progress have you seen us make in women's rights? should we be glad where we are, or do we still have some striving we need to do to get to another level?
Well, I do think we've made progress, even though it's been a slow uphill climb. And I do think we have a long way to go. But I see, even in government, where they would do studies to see the equality of pay between the males and the females. What I don't see, and what I think probably is a slower development, and that is women achieving higher positions with equal pay. And with that, I think we have a ways to go. But I do believe, and I am encouraged that we have made progress, don't get me wrong, but I do think that there definitely needs to be equality of pay and treatment of women as there are with men. And so, yes, I think we do have ways to go to achieve that goal.
A couple of minutes left in the program. I mentioned before the book was thought-provoking, and I guess the bottom line for a lot of people is, are we ready, the United States of America, for a female president? It almost seems like a ludicrous question, but I'm sure there's some out there that are asking that question, maybe not quite publicly, but are we ready? Will she be strong internationally? Will she have the military expertise to get us where we need to and to make and keep America strong? Are we ready for a female president?
Indeed. Yes, we are. And you know, what I think people forget, or maybe they just don't think about, is that with a president comes his cabinet, with his advisors. The president doesn't walk into office all-knowing. He or she has to depend on the people around them, the people that he or she brings with them to the office, that helps him or her in the areas that they might be lacking. There isn't a president that ever was elected, in my opinion, that was all-knowing. So therefore, since we've had a history of male leaders, I see no reason that we can't have females. There are, as you mentioned earlier in your program, there are many countries that have already had women leaders that have been successful. So I don't know why it should be ludicrous, or should I say even strange, to see that we elect a president and it be a female in the years to come. I think it's time, and I just think it's a new mindset for us. We just have to think and think of a woman as we do a man. They have the same brain. They have a lot of the same experiences. They have, by all means, the same education in a lot of instances. So it is a possibility, and in my opinion, should be someday soon a reality.
Well, as you mentioned, the book takes place, Megan Margo O'Brien. We're looking at January 20th, 2016, when she becomes the president of the United States. So we're looking at 2016 certainly being a viable year. Out of time. The time went by way too quickly. You're working on another book, and I'd love to have you back to talk about that. And you've got a female pilot, helicopter pilot. Talk a few seconds about that.
I do. I've just started that one. That one isn't coming along quite as fast. I have a lot of research to do because I knew nothing about helicopters when I started.
I was going to say, where do you draw on from that? In another life, were you a helicopter pilot at some point?
No, my father was an Air Force pilot. He flew jets, but I was around aircraft for the many 20-some years that I was a dependent. But I did not know the ins and outs of helicopters, which is what I'm learning now. But it's about an Air Force, a female Air Force Academy graduate that chooses her aircraft as a helicopter when she graduates from the academy.
Well, I'm sure there's a video game out there that you can play and learn that will guide you through the process with this. I'm looking forward to that book. This book is excellent. It's her first novel, Madam President, and you've got a real person, a real strong person that's running. It's very believable. It's an excellent job, Madam President. The book's available at Abbott Press. That's 2 B's, 2 T's, abbottpress.com, amazon.com. And, of course, information available at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Sandra, congratulations on an excellent book. We look forward to having you back in the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rick. I've enjoyed it.
It's been our pleasure. Thank you. Again, all the information available at our website, thisweekinamerica.us.